Hey guys, welcome to another video. So I am no longer playing DC Universe Online. That's right. Now this isn't the first time I've ever said this. I have quit the game before, but I think this time it is probably going to be for good. I just can't find the joy in logging in anymore and playing the game. It's not that the content is bad or anything like that, and I will get more into why I have quit the game. But I feel like there's going to be a lot of things I'm going to miss, and when it comes to MMORPGs, I'm just not going to be able to, find myself logging in and getting everything that I've missed, especially with the limited time stuff. There's just no way at this point. So, for those new players that have come from the Switch version, I'm going to say welcome to the game. This is a great game. I've played this game for almost 10 years. It is a game that has a lot of content, lots of stuff to do. It has a lot to offer. But these are my reasons as to why I don't play the game anymore. And, if you stick around and watch the video, maybe it'll kind of give you some perspective, give you some information about the game that maybe you need, or maybe it might give you, maybe some reasons to either not spend money on the game or maybe to just kind of play it casually. I don't know. I'm not trying to keep anyone from enjoying the game. That is not my intention of the video. This is just my reasons as to why I can't play DC Universe Online anymore. So let's start with the first thing, the monetization. That is going to be probably the biggest topic of this video. The monetization of this game has just gotten way and now, in the past, I have always defended that DC Universe Online was not a pay-to-win game. A lot of MMOs have some sort of cash shop where they offer things that is going to be argued as either pay-to-win or pay-to-skip. And I always felt that DC Universe Online had pay-to-skip things. Now, recently, if you watch Dakman's channel, and this is kind of how I became aware of it, they recently added a lot of these starter packs to the cash shop, in addition to stuff that they've had in the past that would help you kind of get stronger. So they've had an artifact system where you have an item and you level it up. You could pay money to get it all the way up to max rank. They have something called augments, which are basically like slots in armor. They had it to where you could level those up all the way to max by paying money in the game. Now they've added essentially gear currency to the marketplace with some of these starter packs, and you can just buy it outright with real money. That is the definition of pay to win. Now, eventually, you're going to hit a wall where you have to play the game to get stronger, but at this point, there is a fine line that they have essentially crossed at this point, and I'm not going to support a game that has practices like this where you can buy power if you have the money. And I mean, I will admit, I have purchased, nth metal to level up my artifacts. I have purchased the exobytes to level up my augments. But as a veteran player who's just trying to get the most enjoyment out of the game and stay up to date and stay as strong as possible, I felt that that was some of the things I had to do. I couldn't skip it, and that is one of the reasons why I think monetization is a big reason. You are going to have to pay past the $15 a month if you want to get the most out of this game. There's just no way around it at some points. Now, you could argue, yes, you can earn it, but you're going to be spending a lot of time playing the game, grinding out that experience, the nth metal, the exobytes, and if you're new to the game, you'll learn about that stuff very soon. And I can't justify playing 5-6 hours a day to avoid paying money. I'm fortunate enough to where I can pay the money to kind of skip the grind in some cases, but it just got too out of hand at some points. So that's the first point. The second point is it's kind of getting to the point of where the end game's kind of getting stale. We already know how most of these new content packs are going to come. So that's point two. It's kind of repetitive at this point. If you've been playing for the past year or two, you would know that most of the time when a new episode is announced, you kind of have an idea of what is going to be in it. They've had it for the past year or so where it's going to be a solo instance or a duo. It's one or the other. They never seem to have like two duos or anything like that. So it's always going to be one player dungeon or a 2-player dungeon. Then they always have a 4-player dungeon. They always have an alert. Um, and it's usually just some kind of extravagant alert. There's always some puzzles in it or something like that. Not always, but that seems like what they've been kind of trying to do with these alerts lately, which is appreciated. They are adding some variety, but basically, in summarization, so far you're going to expect a 1-player dungeon, a 2-player dungeon, or a 1-player dungeon or a 2-player dungeon. Sorry, a 4-player dungeon, and then 2 raids and 2 elite raids. And I'm not going to count them as 4 raids because they're the same damn raid. It's just they have a normal raid and then they have a hard raid. So, in general, when it comes to a new episode, in terms of content, you are getting essentially just 4 dungeons. With all varying levels of how many players you need to do it. So, in addition to that, you also have new gear that you're collecting. Sometimes new artifacts, which is essentially just more gear, new augment levels, more gear, aka, and then a new area usually, and then they'll have things like weekly quests and stuff that you can do. Now, what sounds really mean and funny, but typically it's going to be about six to 7 quests that you can do. Typically, there's going to be 3 daily quests that you can do in maybe about 10 minutes. Your weekly quests maybe take you about 30 minutes, if that, depending on what you have to do. And then that's it. That's new episodes. That's what you have to look forward to about every 3 to 4 months or so. And that lasts you, like I said, about 3 to 4 months. Sometimes longer. It just depends on what is in the episode. So, like, they just announced they have the Bat Metal episode coming out. I can probably guess that there's going to be a duo. No, because they just had a duo with Pub Crawl, so they're probably going to have a 1-player dungeon, a alert, and then a 2 raids. That's probably what Bat Metal Part 1 is going to be. And then in addition to the gear, the investigations, the briefings, all the collectible stuff, you know what I mean? So that's kind of what we come to expect now. And there's really nothing in between other than seasonal content that doesn't really change every year anyways. In terms of like seasonal content, all they add is like 1 new collection to collect, base items, call it a day. That's just not what that's not what I want to look forward to every couple months. I want more. I want other things to do. So that kind of leads me into my next point. Point 3 would be there's no PvP content to look forward to. They've pretty much said that they don't know what to do with PvP content. And it's not that they don't want to fix PvP or add content to PvP at some point. It's just that they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to, quote unquote, monetize it or make money from it. So, in general, I think most of us who have been here for a while would agree. If they were to update PvP in some form, first off, it would bring a lot of players back. There's monetization right there. And then from the future fixes that you can implement, then you can start worrying about making more money from it. It is an aspect of the game that has been ignored for a long while. I honestly don't know why. It seems like a lot of MMORPGs kind of do that lately for some reason. I don't know why PvP is such a taboo when it comes to MMORPGs, at least recently. It seems kind of easy to implement PvP, aspects to your online game. Just have capture the flag, deathmatch, capture the node, have your other unique PvP modes, kind of like how they have Diamond Heist and Ring War in this game. And then there you go. Just add more stuff to it from there. There's your baseline. I don't know why that's hard. Obviously, balance is always going to be a factor too, but I mean, that's just kind of the thing with a lot of these games. There's always going to be some sort of imbalance, but getting a baseline where there is some sort of balance, playability, go from there. I don't know why that's so hard to understand. We haven't had a new Legends character in forever. They teased a long time ago that Gorilla Grodd was coming. I've also heard from someone that Poison Ivy was also in the works. So I refuse to believe that it's just been scrapped. It's probably somewhere along in the game files, and I'm going to admit here that in the game files, Aquaman is listed as a legend as well, but he's not a legend. So I'm not sure if maybe they're waiting on some sort of date where they're just going to have a massive Legends expansion and introduce like 30 or 40 characters. I've also heard something like they don't have the rights to sell it anymore. But I mean, like, if you don't have the rights, but you have the rights to make content for DC Universe Online, you have the ability somewhere. If you don't have the right, get it back. You can make money from it. You're not implementing the right strategy, and at some point you need to fire someone because I'm going to admit here as someone who has at least basic knowledge of how to run a business, and at some point you have to listen to your customers, otherwise they're not going to come back, and all you have to do in this case is listen to your customers. So I don't think that would be kind of hard to make money from it. There's going to be a way. So that's point number 3. Number 4 would probably be all the items that are just kind of limited time. I don't understand why a lot of these MMOs will kind of implement this. Oh, there's a limited amount of time for this content. You better start playing now. If you don't play as hard as you can, you're going to miss everything. I've never understood the point of that kind of dynamic. I can understand it when it comes to like selling something. Like, here it is. If you don't spend the money now, then you miss out. I've always hated that kind of tactic. But when it comes to certain content, I don't understand why they do that. So survival mode is a good example. I've never understood why survival mode needs to be a limited time event. Why can't it be a piece of content that is always around for you to be able to do? I feel that is a great way to keep players invested, especially the veteran players who are at endgame, have everything maxed, that it gives you something to do at all times. And I've always suggested this to keep it always relevant, is survival mode should take your group, do some sort of equation that takes the average CR of everyone in the group and then makes the content that hard. That way, even if, this particular version of survival mode came out, it's always relevant. That would be the greatest way to implement permanent survival mode, and I don't know why they haven't done something as simple as that. If someone like me, who is just a simple gamer, can come up with an idea like that, I don't see why a multi-million-dollar company can't. It baffles me. But that would be one of the ways to implement permanent survival mode. There's been other limited time events that have come and gone. I just don't understand why that needs to be a thing, especially when it comes to like the booster bundle items. I don't see any contract where it needs to be these items can no longer be obtained. Most would agree that just put it on the marketplace, you get tons of money from it because people are going to want those cosmetic items. Cosmetic items are always a great way to make money from your game. And most of us who have those limited time items would not mind because it's making money for the game and players are going to want to spend money on it. It's more money for the game. Good for us, good for you. It's a win-win deal. It's a no-brainer. So that'd be point number 4. Number 5 is there's really no incentive to stay logged in for a long time other than collecting nth metal. Like one of the things that I've always argued, and one of the things I just can't understand when it comes to certain YouTubers that just have like a bank full of all these items and all these things, and they just have tons of money and stuff like that, or they tell you to sit in the auction house for hours. That is not fun. I'm sorry. That is not fun, engaging gameplay. You may love the game. I don't love the game that much. I'm sorry. I like the game, but I'm not going to do boring shit for hours and hours and hours. So for those that are new to this game, and I'm trying to kind of, put things into perspective as easy as I can if you're new to the game. So when it comes to if you're at endgame in DC Universe Online, typically you have about 2 sections of content that you can play for relevancy, and that's what it's actually called. It's, relevancy, content relevancy. So there's always the newest episode, which, if you remember back in point number 2, is going to consist of about 2 raids, a 4-player dungeon, and then a 1 or a 2-player dungeon. So that's 4 pieces of content. Then you have your open world missions. If it's like reset day, you have some extra stuff to do, and then you have the previous content expansions content on top of that. So typically about 4 raids, 2 alerts, 2 other dungeons, and then maybe 6 daily quests, and then if it's reset day, then maybe like 4, 5, 6 weekly quests. So I'm going to ask a very simple question. How long do you, if you're a new player, think that would take to complete? Or if you are a player who already plays the game, about how long does it take you to do all of that kind of stuff? Your dailies is what it's called. How long does it take to do your dailies? How long do you think it takes to do your dailies? So I'll tell you right now, me, personally, if it's reset day, I'm doing all the raids, doing all the weeklies and such. Typically, we'll wait later on to do the raids, but I'd say about in total, if we're doing the elites and it's like brand new content, could take 2 to 3 hours to do the elite raids, and that's if we beat it, if it's like day 1. But let's say it's a little bit into the content expansion. It's been like maybe 1 or 2 months. Everybody has some of the best gear, stuff like that. Your dailies on reset day, I'd say, take maybe at the most 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours or so, because a raid's gonna maybe take you 20 minutes to do, if that, depending on what it is. So let's say on average it takes you about that long. Now tomorrow comes. You don't have your raids to do anymore unless you can get someone to reset the loot. So I just have my daily quests. I just have my 4-player dungeon, my 1 to 2-player dungeon, stuff like that. Maybe an hour to do. Maybe. That's if I'm being generous. The quests that you can get from the open world, minutes to complete. The dungeons, like the alert, 10-15 minutes at the most. The 1 to 2-player dungeons, 7 to 8 minutes. The things to do don't take very long to complete. And I think that's always been an issue with DC Universe Online. Is at its heart a very casual MMORPG. It does not want your attention for very long, which can be a good thing in some people's eyes, but it's also a bad thing, because as soon as I'm done with the things to do for that day that is kind of going to give me the best, rewards, I'm probably going to log off. Because we've already established in point 3 that PvP is not being updated, and if I have the most, I have the best PvP gear that the game has to offer currently, there's no incentive for me to stay logged in, other than maybe artifact grind or for nth metal experience, but that is boring as shit. So that is basically the argument that DC Universe Online is giving you is, okay, so you've done everything for the day. You could run old content, which is not going to really give you anything unless you're trying to get achievements. Or you could continue to grind for nth metal experience, which is boring. Sorry, it just kind of is. Or you can PvP, which is not balanced, and Legends is probably the most fun PvP because that's the most balanced that you're going to get. But so as a new player, that's going to be a lot of cool stuff to do. I'm going to be honest there. There's a lot of fun to be had if you're a new player. But eventually you're going to hit a threshold, because a lot of these achievements are easy to get. PvP, it's pretty fast to move on up, just because you can trade wins. Even if you lose, you still get currency, stuff like that. At some point, you are going to hit a threshold where, man, like I'm at end game, did all my dailies for the day. Uh, like what is there to do? I could do the events, which takes minutes. I could do PvP, but there's really why am I doing PvP when there's really no reason to do it because they're not going to update it for a while, if at all. So that is another reason I just can't bring myself to log in is there's nothing else to do. There needs to be mini games, there needs to be side content, fun stupid content to just pass the time. A lot of MMOs have something like that. So to kind of give you an idea of what DC has probably experimented with is the races. So races I thought was always a neat idea that they probably just never expanded on. Maybe because I don't know, the player interaction wasn't there. If they thought there wasn't enough interaction in general, but multiplayer races I always thought was a neat idea. I felt that they should have had some sort of expansion to it. They could have had multiple multiplayer races around the cities, especially since a lot of the cities are just dead in terms of players because there's nothing to do out there. They should have had their own currency, their own rewards that they just constantly added stuff to. Races would have been a nice side activity to do that's just stupid, silly, and fun. World of Warcraft has stuff like the Pokemon minigame, the farming minigame. RuneScape has side mini games where like you literally just play different things and you get rewards for it. Like RuneScape has a freaking battle royale mode. It has other PvP modes. It has all these other games have other stuff to do besides the main PvE content that the game wants you to do. So that has always been something that has been missing in DC. So there's just nothing. Number 5 is essentially there's nothing keeping a player who has kind of done everything for the day, or they felt that they've done everything today, keeping me logged in because there's just no incentive. There's no reward. And like I said, I'm not going to sit in the auction house to try and make money because it's boring as hell. I'm not going to farm nth metal because it's boring as hell. Just not going to do that. And I think most players would agree with me there, except for maybe new players. But even new players are going to get tired of running the same old tired content every single day. I think my 6th point would probably be just the lack of just awareness of what these players want. So recently, the developer interaction has gotten way better. I will give them that. It's been great, especially when they were doing testing for the last episode. I'm hoping that they keep up with that, but just being absolutely ignorant as to what players do or do not want seems to be the case, and it has always been that way. I don't know why that has always been hard thing for the developers to understand. All you have to do is log into the game for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, go to the forums, go to general discussion, watch a YouTube video. There is content that has been implemented that nobody has wanted. There has been content that people have wanted that they have just flat out ignored. It's really easy to keep players at least somewhat happy without breaking the bank, without pissing off too many people. The developers they don't play the game. They are not passionate about their own game. And it's sad that it's like that. Because, I mean, really the only one I could potentially see is passionate about the game is maybe SJ. Because every time she's unveiling new content, she's genuinely knowledgeable about it, at least in the comic book sense. I have no idea if she actually plays the game. She may not, for all I know. Because every time she says something like, oh, I gotta get this character up, it's like, you probably don't play the game. You know what I mean? Avere is probably the only other one that I can think of that potentially plays the game on a in-depth kind of level. Aver is the guy who always comes up with like the combat mechanics, new systems, stuff like that. Aver was probably my favorite developer, next to Batuba. Batuba was a relatively newer developer. I couldn't really get a sense of from him if you played the game or not. But Aver, I would at least know probably logs into the game every couple days or so just to kind of maybe test things, get a sense of the community, stuff like that. Aver kind of seems more or less kind of knows his shit. The rest of the team, it's hard to say. I don't think that they do. Meps, I doubt it. I highly doubt Meps plays the game. He's so ignorant on a lot of the mechanics, systems, names, what different things are. And I mean, I don't blame him for not playing the game. I'm not going to say if you work for this company, you have to play the game. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you have to log into the game every single day, but you should at least know the game, right? I'm not expecting you to be like overly passionate about it if you're that one specific worker, but it would be nice to see as a player that one passionate person who just knows almost everything they could about the game. It would be great to see that, but we've never ever had that, except for maybe Spittle. Spittle, love him or hate him, was passionate about the game, was genuinely passionate. He played the game. He would do streams where he played with the players, he did events. He might have done some controversial stuff in the game, but he was genuinely having fun with the game. And we have not seen that since. And it's kind of sad, unfortunately. And because like I said, the rest of the developer team, I doubt plays the game on a deep level or even somewhat casual level to an extent. So basically number 6 is the developer player interaction is just not as strong as I would like it to be. Now, in terms of other points that I could make, I could go on for hours. I mean, the game is genuinely buggy in some areas, but that's going to be online games in general. You're just going to run into bugs. Nothing is ever going to be perfectly optimized. In terms of the game, a lot of people would argue the graphics are terrible and outdated. To me, I've never cared about that kind of stuff, so that's not why I'm quitting. I mean, I guess I could probably give you points as to why I wish I could continue to play. The game is fun. Obviously, there's no way I could have played the game for almost 10 years if it wasn't. There's a lot of customization. There's a lot of classes, aka power sets to play. There's 15, I believe. No, there might be less than that. I'm having a brain fart right now. I believe it's 15 powers that you can play, which is a lot of customization. That is a ton of powers to just have fun with, which is pretty awesome in my opinion. And they all play fairly differently. Not all of them will play super differently, but they play different enough. Like the DC comic book world is interesting to me. I've always liked comic books. So if you like that kind of thing, that'll keep you engaged. Genuinely, it can be exciting to get content fairly often. A lot of MMOs maybe wait 1 to 2 years before you get new stuff. DC kind of gives you new stuff to do every like 3 to 4 months. So there's reasons that I want to keep playing for sure. But there's also just too many reasons as to why I can't continue anymore. So I hope for those that are watching and kind of relate to some of the points I've made, and maybe some of the other points I failed to mention, because like I said, there's tons of other things that I can come up with, but I don't want to make this video super, super long. I hope maybe some of you potentially relate to me. If you still play the game, that's great, man. I hope you still have fun with it. But I just don't feel the same anymore. So I'm kind of curious as to what some of your guys' thoughts on the game currently. If you play it, why do you still play it? If you don't play it, why don't you play it anymore? This is essentially more or less kind of like a follow-up to my Dead or Alive video. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this video. I will potentially be kind of contemplating what I want to do with this channel in the future. Like I said, I've done other things recently with like MMO coverage. I don't know if that's what I want to do, because all those videos take 5-6 hours to edit. It's just a lot of work, time, effort, and I mean, not a lot of people were watching it. I'm just gonna have to reevaluate what I want to do. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will potentially see you in another video. Who knows? I have so much free time now. Anyways, guys, I'll catch you later. Bye.